Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my podcast partner, Tom Laidlaw, the former NHL defenseman with the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. And we are the Laidlaw and Allen Report. And Tom, I think first on our agenda has to be the firing of Ray Shero. I certainly didn't see that coming after they moved out John Hines. I thought, that was the move, and here we go. And lo and behold, the announcement that I don't think they said he was fired. I think they said he's no longer our general manager, which is essentially the same thing. But what's your read on that?
Well, I think you and I both feel the same way about Ray Shero. Like as a person, I go way back. His father got me my start in the National Hockey League. His father, Freddie Shero, was coach of the Rangers and was the first one to say, "Okay, Tom, you're now in the National Hockey League." So I've known Ray for, I guess, what's that, 40 years or close to 40 years now because of that relationship. So fine man, gentleman, all that kind of stuff. And I think he's just an outstanding general manager too. And but, at the same time, if I'm the owners, I'm looking at saying, okay, let's get this straight. We came in, we brought Ray Shero in with this great track record. Hines comes in as coach. We have a good first year. We go get Taylor Hall. Things are looking great. We're moving forward. And now Taylor Hall is gone. Hines is gone. We've got PK Subban here who doesn't want to be here. That's been a flop. We got these two good young first overall picks in the draft, but, they're not patient. They're owners, right? They don't see what they're going to be in 5 years. So they're saying, well, this thing just isn't going in the right direction. So you really can't, if that's their logic, if that's what they're looking at, I guess you really can't argue with it. Although I think when you've got a general manager that has a proven track record like Ray has, I think you're you're making a change there. So Ray's got to go in a certain direction. Yes, it hasn't always worked out great for him in this situation, but he's got them going in the direction that he wants them to go. And now you're going to have another GM come in and he's going to have his own direction. Maybe it's the same as Ray's, but then why are you making a change if you get some new GM coming with the same direction?
Well, and, I think we both believe that, Ray Shero is a very knowledgeable hockey guy, has an engaging personality. He's fun to be around. I don't know anyone in the league that doesn't like Ray Shero, but this is still a performance league. Totally. And I don't care how much you know or how enjoyable of a guy you are. If you're not doing it, you're gone. And I think that's what happened to Ray. I mean, this season has really been a disaster. I never believed that the moves they made in the offseason were, that it was a slam dunk. Like it seemed iffy to me coming in that, because I thought they were dependent too much on the younger players. And they expected Heischer to take, a pretty quantum leap, which really hasn't happened. Like I think he's, on a slow growth pattern. And Jack Hughes, I mean, he's going to be an exceptional player, but, you can't expect a lot out of the first year. I think we tend to look at all number one draft picks and think they're going to be Austin Matthews. Totally. And they're not. Yep. It takes some time. Steven Stamkos, if you remember the battles he had with Barry Melrose, and, it took him, was the end of the year before he actually looked and like he was going to be a top player. And I think, look at Joe Thornton.
Nathan McKinnon too, like how fantastic he is now. She struggled,
Yeah, you just need, you need some time. So, the one thing that's interesting, and I want to get your take on this, obviously, is, boy, where does Ray Shero go from here? Like, coming out of Pittsburgh, it was pretty clear he would get another job. He had won, a Stanley Cup there, and it was. He had brought together a pretty good outfit there, and then they sort of, spun out, and he was gone, which is just the way of the world. Now, like I'm wondering, how attractive is he right now coming out of that messy situation in New Jersey?
All right, so I'm going to be Ray Shero's agent. I am not his agent, but I'm going to pretend I'm his agent. So I'm going to look and say, okay, when Ray Shero came to the New Jersey Devils, Corey Schneider was still, I think, still at that point considered one of the this top great young goaltender. Right, his game completely fell apart, so they really didn't have any goaltending. Certainly, the goaltending they thought they were going to have. They went and got. I think everybody thought that the Taylor Hall deal was a steal. They gave up Larson, the young defenseman, who's a good defenseman, but not the caliber of Taylor Hall. And Taylor Hall gets hurt. His game isn't as great as it was. He wants to get traded. They can't get him re-signed. I don't think you can really blame Ray Shero for that. You're right in these two young Heischer and Hughes, 2 first overall picks in the draft. Everybody would say, "Well, that's great. You got 2 first overall picks in the draft." And like you said, I think so many people see Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid come in as 18-year-olds and play fantastic. And I mean, this is a total compliment to those 2 players. That's almost freakish, though. Like right. An 18-year-old to come in and be that good. It's usually like a Nathan McKinnon, a Joe Thornton that you just mentioned. Those guys have, some time here to get used to the National Hockey League and then become the stars that they have become. To me, I don't think Ray's stock has really fallen that much. I think if you look at all those circumstances, you go, everything just fell apart for him. All the things that they were hoping were going to happen just didn't happen. So I still think he'll be okay. I just think and again, he's got enough of a track record that people know how smart of a general manager he is. So,
well, I would say the same thing I always say when a coach is fired. He didn't wake up on a Monday and forget how to coach. Yeah, like Ray Shero is still a very effective hockey guy. My only question is he'll be back in the league for sure because he has many friends and many admirers. It's just, will he be able to land with another team as a GM? Because those jobs don't come along as often as coaching jobs even. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If you look at not that I think David Poile is considering retirement, but given the mentorship that he had in Nashville, I would wonder whether or not he might go back there and sort of be David Poile's successor. I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point, but that could be a long wait because David may be a GM. Of course, I bet he'll be like Lou Lamoriello.
Yeah, totally.
I bet he'll go into his mid-70s.
Well, you look at Don Waddell, our good friend Don Waddell too. I mean, he was general manager in Atlanta. Then had to go away. He went to Detroit. Did he go to Detroit first? But I mean, he bounced around a little bit and then finally got back in as the president, running in Carolina, and now as the general manager there too. So, I think you're right. And very similar, I think, well, maybe Don didn't have the track record of winning that Ray did, but very well respected, both those guys. So they found their way back into that general manager.
Yeah, I think Donnie worked for Ray Shero in Pittsburgh. I think he worked as pro scout there and, did some work. And then, and really, I bet Waddell would say that he wasn't sure he'd ever get back in the hockey side. Yeah. He had sort of moved in the president. I mean, he's a heck of a team president. Anybody, even though the hockey side didn't work out in Atlanta, I know from talking to Gary Bettman that Gary Bettman thought that Waddell's stewardship as president sort of kept that team in Atlanta longer than it would have otherwise.
Well, with all the mess they had, I think those owners walked away. I think they walked away making, and I know this really doesn't judge success or not, but for the business side, I think they walked away making $10 or $20 million after they sold that team. That team had just become a mess. They were suing each other as owners ever since they got in there. So you're right. I think from the business side, he's done a great job. So
yeah, and he did. And he went to Carolina, and he had success there. He rebuilt their season ticket base, and then when the new owner came in and realized that Waddell knew the hockey side as well, I think basically he was trying to save money, to be honest with you. And then it turned out that Don did a terrific job. I think you look at the moves he made, and I think they decided to keep him. Anyway, let's move on to a different subject. One I really wanted to talk about is the Vancouver Canucks. And Tom, I thought they were going to slide. I thought, boy, they got off to a good start, and it was pretty impressive. And I thought, well, they got a bright future, but they'll get caught at some point, and there's still going to be a team that's on the outside looking in. But here we are in mid-January, and the Canucks are there. And I looked at a couple of statistics, and I wanted to bring them up here. Okay, they're 14-5-3 at home. They're just 11-12-1 on the road. If they're a little bit better there, they'd be in better shape. But they're 8-2 in their last 10. They have a plus 13 goal differential. And to put that in perspective, only the 3 teams that are currently holding the playoff spots and the Central Division, the top 3 teams there have a better goal differential in the Western Conference than the Vancouver Canucks. And here's the thing that's a little bit startling: is they're 7th in the NHL in goals. You know, they're a team that is putting the puck in the net on a regular basis. And you know, you look at their top guys: Elias Pettersson, 48 points; JT Miller, 44 points; Besser, 40 some as well. Jake Virtanen has 13 goals. Even Tanner Pearson, a guy that you know has been around the block a few times, has 12 goals, is on close to a 20-goal pace.
Yeah.
But I think the big important player in the turnaround there is Jack Hughes' brother, Quinn Hughes, who has 32 points in 45 games. Like what a difference he's meant on the back end. Yep. And getting the puck up to the forwards. And you know, because I live in Detroit, I hear constant whining about how the Red Wings should have drafted Hughes, or they needed Hughes, and so forth. I'm not even sure. I can't remember now how that draft went. Well,
you know the big thing for me there in Vancouver, while you're thinking about that, is 2 things. They're picking up JT Miller and Myers, the defenseman. Like those are those kind of moves. They're big body guys that can skate. They've been around. They've played in important games. I think JT Miller is playing a huge role for them, and I love that Myers, that big rangy defenseman. I just, you know, I think they've drafted well, but they've also made those trades where, you know, it's funny. Like you could kind of say it's kind of a surprise that Vancouver is doing so well, but then you really go in and analyze that team and the moves that they've made, and it really isn't that much of a surprise, really. I just think they're that good of a team, and again, very similar to the Rangers here in New York too. They've got some young kids on that team that are as good as they are now, are just going to continue to improve. So I think, you know, as they go along, they like, you know, even this season, if you look for a playoff run, well, man, that team's pretty good though. You get those kids, you know, a full season under the belt now and feel that much better about the game. I love what they've done all around. Just like I said, not just the draft picks, but those players they picked up by their free agency or making trades.
Yeah, and I think some people, Quinn Hughes went 1 pick after the Red Wings, and you know that's the thing. And you know what's interesting about that JT Miller trade is everyone looked at it, and I don't think that everyone understood that the value of JT Miller when that trade was made. I think people looked at that as you know, no big deal. Like he's a player, you know, a credible player, but not a difference maker. And he's come in there and taken his game to a little bit higher level. And it's really all about opportunity, isn't it, Tom? I mean, just a greater opportunity in Vancouver than he's had previously.
Well, we saw him a lot here in New York before he went to Tampa Bay, and you can see, to be critical of him here, I can see where there was that still, and understandably, that young kind of immature guy in some ways that maybe didn't, you know, he would overreact to certain plays or whatever. But you can see that skill level, right? He had jam in his game, good hands for a big man, could shoot the puck, get up and down the ice well, and then goes to Tampa, and they've got so many talented players there. It's like, you know, and this is again maybe a knock at him. You've got to really step up and do something spectacular to make be in that top 6 there in Tampa, and then he goes to Vancouver. Like you said, it's an opportunity for him. An opportunity as an older guy to lead some of the younger guys now, and really get more quality ice time. And he's taking advantage of it. I like his game. He's playing well. Again, he's that feisty guy too. He's got an attitude out there. You know, you want your team to have that. And then, like I said, that Myers, that big defenseman. You look at St. Louis last year with the success they have with their big defenseman. Myers is that same kind of guy. He skates well enough. He moves the puck. He can shoot it. They've done a good job there. I like what they've done.
Well, it won't be easy for Vancouver. You know, here's the Calgary Flames, you know, who's come on now. All of a sudden they're in first place when it looked like they were off to such a disastrous start. And, you know, you have the Vegas Golden Knights. They have exactly the same number of points. Like that Western Conference is tough. And then you've got the Predators. You know, John Hines has moved in there. I think they're 2-1 under John, and they had a big shutout, a 1-0 win. I thought that was an important kind of a statement win.
So who is not going to make the playoffs over there?
I know it's going to
fall out of there. Like you wonder if Edmonton.
Well, Edmonton Right now you'd say both Edmonton and Nashville are not going to get in.
Minnesota's playing better. Yeah.
So I don't know. Minnesota has played better, but it's hard to make up ground because there's so many teams in the middle that are fighting for those spots. A couple of them are winning every night. Right. So it's hard, even like you almost got to go on a 8 or 9 game winning streak, to kind of assert yourself.
And the team that I've picked on here recently too. What about San Jose? Like San Jose to me is that team very similar to Calgary. We were very negative at Calgary at the start of the year. Does San Jose get it together? They've certainly got the talent to get it together there. If they do, what are they? They're at 46 points now. So 7 points out of a wild card spot. Man, that's the kind of team you look at and go, okay, let's show you what you got. Like they're playing a little bit better defensively now since Bugner comes in there. That's really what if you listen to his comments, trying to get that team to play a little grittier. I think that's a little bit like putting the square peg in a round hole when you got Carlson and Brent Burns on defense. I mean, those aren't those gritty, stay-at-home kind of guys. But interesting to see what happens there too.
Yeah, I got to say that I'm a little bit disappointed by the Vegas Golden Knights this season. They're 24 and 18 and 6 here. I'm looking at their thing, and they're they're a plus team as well. But I expected them to be better. I really did. I thought the Stone acquisition last year was a nice finishing touch. Like Pacioretty has kind of been the guy they thought he could be. I think what's hurt him is what Marc-Andre Fleury has gone through. With the loss of his father, and it ran him over like a truck. And I think you're right too. Sorry, Kev, but I think the one thing that I wonder there. So when they come in there, their initial season in the National Hockey League, nobody really expected anything from them, right? They bonded as a team. And even then, remember, Marc-Andre Fleury was hurt like a good quarter of the season there too, right? That initial season. So it wasn't like they had him to lean on. I almost got the feeling they knew they had to play so much like a team that they just, Gerard Gallant, the coach there, to his credit, he got them playing that team game. I wonder now if it's one of those things where they've got more talented guys now. Are they sitting back saying, okay, we've got Stone, we've got Pacioretty, we can let them go do it kind of mentality, not playing that good team game like they were earlier. It's kind of a change in what they were when they really had success. Yeah, no, that's right. And, it's harder to play, I think, when everybody kind of knows how good you are. Like in that first season, everybody took it too lightly. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
And then, once everyone realized, oh boy, these guys are for real, it got a little bit, more difficult. But it just seems to me that Marc-Andre Fleury too has not been the same goalie, and obviously he's gone through a lot, and there's got to be some concern there as well. But the Oilers I think they really need to make the playoffs too. Like I think it's important for the fan base. It's important for Ken Holland. He needs to make a statement. It's not the same old. We're going to do something here. I look for them to be aggressive in the trade deadline. I just don't see any reason for them not to do that. And they can't fix all of their problems. They still need to draft and develop defensemen. But they can do enough maybe to get in the playoffs. Although, that's the West is tough. There's no doubt about it.
The goaltending good enough. There's definitely some holes in that lineup too. So.
Yeah, goaltending. Yeah, I'm not sure that it is, to be honest with you.
How about Winnipeg? See, Winnipeg slowly creeping up there too, right?
Oh yeah.
Hockey, I like them.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of that, what's going to happen? What's our update on Dustin Byfuglien? Anything new on that whole situation?
I haven't heard anything in a while on him.
Interesting.
The last we heard is that he was trying to make a case that this is injury related.
Right.
But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about Jonathan Huberdeau, who last night became the all-time leading Panthers scorer. But I'm not so interested in that as I am for the fact that I've sort of sensed over the last couple of years that Huberdeau has sort of developed into a pretty impressive scorer, 92 points last season, without much fanfare. We don't think of him as a top player, but here he is again this season. Let me see how many points he has. 61 points and 45. So he's even ahead of last year's 92 point pace. And I just wonder, is this a case of, because we've seen it so often, of a guy not getting recognition because his team hasn't won?
Totally. Well, before you and I, when we were prepping for this to do the show here, and you mentioned Huberdeau, and I was like, what's the big deal? Then you look, just like you did, you go over statistics and you're realizing, wow, this guy's really good.
Yeah.
It's Florida. The team really hasn't had that much success as a team recently, although I think they're heading in the right direction now. And you're right, he is one of those guys that you just don't see what a talented player is. If he's playing in Washington, New York, or Toronto, those places, you realize, he's one of the top guys in the National Hockey League, and he is one of the top players in the National Hockey League. So,
well, the thing about the Panthers right now, they're starting to make their move a little bit. Pretty impressive record. You could see them, in the hunt. But what's their identity, Tom? Like who are they? Are they Joel Quenneville? Are they Barkov? They still feel a little bit like patchwork to me. Like they're not. You talked about that cohesive team feeling you had about Vegas. I don't have that with the Panthers. They still feel like sort of, you plugged a hole here and you needed some goaltending and you got Bobrovsky. And I don't have that sense that there's a total plan on how to do it. I mean, it could be totally wrong. I'm just saying that's the perception of them.
And I think your perception is dead on right. I think what has to happen to them is that they've got to make the playoffs and they've got to go on a run in the playoffs. And that's when you really start to, see what that identity is, right? I think they're a good team. They're obviously a well-coached team. Joel Quenneville's record is, one of the top coaches ever in the National Hockey League. But you're right. They had to fill holes, right? They had goaltending that went away on them. They had to get a new goaltender. They did that. I like the team a lot, but you're right. They still need to go on that, something that bonds them together. Like the Washington Capitals up till 2 years ago were a very good hockey team, but they really never won. Now they win the Stanley Cup, and now you watch the Washington Capitals. I think you get a better idea. They're that big, heavy team that can shoot, score, and skate. You know what they are. You know what the Bruins are. You know what St. Louis is. You know what Tampa is now. And I think Florida needs to go on a roll. Either winning a lot of games during the regular season or getting into the playoffs, and then people will see what they really are.
The Ekblad back on defense, I think people thought he was going to be a rock on which you build a team. Has he been disappointing to you, or did we expect a little bit too much? I mean, he scores 13, 14 goals a year, 15 goals, and he's a two-way guy. I mean, he's a good player, but it seems like when he was drafted, we thought he was going to be more, didn't we?
Well, you're definitely right. The talk about him was that he was going to be a lot more than that. And like you said, I think he's fine. He's a good defenseman,
right?
But it's just he doesn't jump out at you and just he's not he doesn't he's not in that category of Carlson offensively, in Washington. But he's still good offensively. He's not Chara on defense in Boston, but he's still good defensively. So. Yeah, I like him, but I think you're right. That's an interesting team. It's just, and I think, so Dale Talon was the general manager. They fired him. They went off in a different direction, fired Gerard Gallant, and now Dale Talon comes back and kind of like he has to kind of regroup get him back on the same track that he had going on before. And he's in the process of doing that. So, I think because of the combination of Dale Talon and Joel Quenneville, they've got the goaltending there now. You think to yourself, okay, these guys have done it before. Now they're building. It doesn't happen overnight. They're building what they want to get. I like Florida. Again, I think they're one of those teams. If they get in the playoffs and get on a roll, and they can get the goldtending that they should get from Bobrovsky. That they can really do something.
Yeah, I mean, I like them too. I picked them to get in the playoffs, but they still feel like a mystery to me. Like I really don't know. And maybe it's like anything else. Like. Everyone says, Eddie Belfour was a guy that said, well, he can't win until he did win. Yeah, totally. Then he was a Hall of Famer. Yep. And that's how I feel about the Panthers. Like, I think that they look like a team that could, push, 46, 47, 48 wins. But in a 7-game series, could they win 4 games against Tampa or Boston? I don't know.
Yeah, but I agree with you totally. And the same thing for Ovechkin before he won the Stanley Cup. You're wondering, like, okay, this works hard and everything. He's a great player, but he doesn't know how to win. Well, now he knows how to win. So
I think it was a little bit different because it felt like the Capitals could win. Like, I mean, like they were just a little off. Like something was a little off. I think the Panthers is a much harder read because we don't have, any sense because, they don't make the playoffs at all. I mean, the Capitals were getting in. They just seemed to be a little short.
Right.
Couldn't quite win that big game.
Here's where I'm going to disagree. I didn't think the Capitals were short. I think the Capitals had too much talent before when they made the playoffs, and they weren't playing that team game.
Well,
when they finally won the Cup, that was probably the least talented team they had in that previous 5 years. And they realized, okay, we need to play a better team game. They finally started listening to the coach more and played a better team game.
I mean, either way, I mean, how you look at it, they didn't have what it takes, but you could sense they were close.
Yes.
I think with the Panthers, we don't know whether they're close or not.
Right.
We just can't seem to get a handle on it because they don't have any kind of track record. Like the Capitals would get in that big game and then they'd lose it.
Yeah, totally.
But they were there in the big game. We haven't seen the Panthers in any big games, so we just don't know. I want to have just a little fun here at the end before we close.
All right.
I was watching the NFL yesterday. I'm sure you did too. Nothing quite like NFL playoffs to get you interested. And I was watching those Packers and thinking about the history of the Packers. And here's this small market, in the middle of Wisconsin. And I have some history with it. I grew up with a family that was from Wisconsin. They were big Packers. So I go back all the way back to the, Bart Starr era. And my wife's family is from there. In fact, one of her uncles lives 2 blocks from Lambeau Field. So I have a sense of all this. And I've always been amazed that such a small market could be such a big impact team because they're a powerhouse. People look at them and say, boy, the Packers, they're good every year. And I wondered, is that possible in the NHL? Could we do that? And, we have a salary cap. So, I look at a team like, and let's just use them for example, maybe it's someone else, but let's use the Carolina Hurricanes.
Sure. Is
it possible for a Carolina Hurricanes, Tom, to become a Green Bay Packers of the NHL?
Absolutely. Yes. That's a great call by you, actually. I think as much as I've always been on the player side, obviously as a player and then as an agent, we've gone through some lockouts, some work stoppages in the National Hockey League to kind of correct the system, as the league would like to say. And I think that's one of the byproducts of correcting the system. The revenue sharing is greater. The salary cap makes it so that the richer teams can't just outspend everybody else. So now the teams like Carolina, who maybe don't have quite the revenues coming in from their season ticket base and everything, that because they have more revenue sharing from the National Hockey League, greater TV revenue, it allows them to now play on an even playing field with the rest of the teams in the National Hockey League. So it really matters a lot less of the fact that you're a small market team. You've got the same opportunities. And I think, it's funny you mentioned Carolina too. Look at all the things that they're doing, like the off ice. I mean, after the game celebrations, you think of the Lambeau Leap where the players in Green Bay, go flying in the stands after they score a touchdown or whatever. So a lot of that same interaction with the fans, right? Like even like it's Green Bay's team, as much as like the Giants, let's say in New York or New York's team, they're not connected, I think, quite as much to the fan base as like Green Bay is. And certainly that's what Carolina is building down there.
Yeah. I mean, and that is a major difference. Like the Packers have so much history that they've been connected for so long. And, first of all, Carolina doesn't draw like the Packers draw, nor do they have the national reputation that the Packers have. But it's interesting because, they have the Lambeau Leap. And then last year we saw the Hurricanes try to do that post-game celebration and connect with fans that kind of earned the ire of Don Cherry and others as well. But they were trying. They were trying to do their version of the Lambeau Leap. And, we saw a little bit of this going back to the 1980s when the Edmonton Oilers were kind of the Green Bay, Now that's a little bit misleading because Edmonton's a pretty big revenue producer. Like they're not down in the bottom of the revenue. Right. Because they have such a history, but they won all those cups with Gretzky.
And the Islanders in that category, maybe too. I shouldn't be saying that as a Ranger.
Yeah, but the Islanders are from a major market. Like I get that they're in the shadow of the Rangers, but that they're in New York. that's not the same as Green Bay or Edmonton or Raleigh.
Now I could really stir the pot here right now with some of my comments of like to talk about the Islanders as a former Ranger. I mean, like Long Island really isn't New York, right? I mean, it's
yeah, but from the grand, I get what you're saying because I've driven to Nassau, but but the grand scheme of things, somebody in Idaho, doesn't think of the Islanders being separate. They just think New York.
Right.
And where they get the distinction between, Green Bay and New York. And, Green Bay is not Los Angeles. It's not Chicago. It's not New York.
Very true.
And I think the same can be said with the Edmonton Oilers. And,
are you kind of offended that because Barry Trotz is the Islanders?
No, not at all. I'm just trying to make my point about the, sort of the big market versus small market. But, yeah, I think looking back, the Oilers, I think, could have been there because, just like the Packers had Bart Starr and then Brett Favre and then, Aaron Rodgers, back then the Oilers had Gretzky, but they had a lot. They had Gretzky and Messier and Paul Coffey and Grant Fury and Gary Curry. It was just an embarrassment of riches back then. Anyway, we've run out of time here as it always goes by too quickly, Tom. You've been watching the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We'll be back on Wednesday. Thanks for joining.
Wednesday, guys.